everyone, I'm Allie with Potomac Bead Company, and I'm going to spread a little bit of holiday cheer today and show you how to make these cute snowmen. I'm going to be making it into a long necklace where the snowmen are going to kind of float on this wonderful Italian chain that kind of has that snow look to it. It's a fancy round chain, and it is 4.65 millimeter fancy round silver coated Italian chain is what I'm using. I'm also going to be using some 20 gauge artistic wire. I'm using the silver color since I'm using silver wire, but you could even decorate it for the holidays and use some green or red wire. For the beads, I'm using the reconstituted matte crystal beads in a 12 millimeter and in an 8 millimeter, and these are going to be the body of my snowmen. To do the scarf, there's two options. If you want a little bling, you can use the Swarovski Rondelles. I have them in the Siam color there, the red, and I also have them in an emerald color. I'm going to alternate on my necklace between the red and the green, or you can just use some O beads in a red color if you'd rather it not be so blingy. For my hat of my snowman, I'm going to be using jet O beads for my brim, and then I'm using black 3 millimeter cubes as the top of my top hat. In addition to these materials, you're going to need some pliers. I'm going to make mine also long enough that I don't need a clasp, but you may. Plier-wise, you're going to need your round nose pliers, you're going to need a needle nose pliers, and you're going to need a wire cutters. I am working on a bead mat. It gives a great grab onto it, and that way your wire doesn't fling as you're working with your project. It doesn't kind of get all over. The other thing that you can have, and this is kind of just an added tool, is a thin Sharpie marker, or a thick one would work too, but the thin one is going to give you a little bit more precision. You can also use an acrylic paint or a puffy paint if you would rather do that. This is just a quick option if you want to put some dots on your snowman. Also, I'll show you what to do with your round nose pliers in order to make those loops the perfect size. So we're going to be making these snowmen and attaching it to the chain here and there to give you a nice long holiday necklace. So the first snowman that I've created, I've used the 12 on the bottom, then the crystal Rondelle in the 6 millimeter, and then an 8 millimeter matte crystal on the top, and then my top hat. They are all on 20 gauge wire. I'm going to show you how to make the loops on these wire, and then what we're going to do is we're going to attach them to our chain. The length of chain that you use is up to you. Right here I have about 24 inches of chain. That's going to give me about a 32-inch necklace by the time that I add my little snowmen here. I have 6 pieces sitting here to add 6 snowmen onto my necklace. You can choose how many you want to do, how long you want it to do. If you do want it shorter, you will need a clasp on it. I like the idea of long because then he kind of floats around. You can also wear it with multiple items and it doesn't look so holiday and chintzy. It kind of has a nice, elegant look to it when it's made long. To get started, I'm going to be using my 20 gauge art wire, and all I'm going to do is right off the spool, I'm going to pick up my round nose pliers. When I make my loop to attach to my chain, I want the loop to be about the same size as my links. As I've said before, this Italian chain is 4.65 millimeter. What you can do is pick up the end of the chain there, put it into your round nose pliers, and then you can grab that handy dandy Sharpie that you've had here, and you can actually mark on your round nose pliers exactly where that touches, and then you'll know exactly how big you need your loop to be. You can do this also anytime you're making earrings or anything that you're doing wire working for. Now I have my base where I'm going to hold my wire. I'm going to hold it so that I can see the wire at the top there, but I can't feel it coming out and poking out the top. I'm going to turn my pliers and reposition them once and just make a loop. Don't overthink that loop, just turn it and make the loop. I'm also then going to straighten out that loop by bending it back about 45 degrees and making a nice eye pin. After you make one, you can kind of get the length that you need, but this is going to be about 1.25 inches. And I'm going to give a nice cut with my pliers. I'm going to cut my wire, and then I'm going to build my snowman. Once you have that eye pin loop cut, we're going to assemble our snowman. Whether or not you do it from top to bottom, bottom to top, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do it from the top down, so I'm going to stick that cube on, and I'm going to stick my O bead on. I'm going to stick my 8 millimeter crystal quartz bead on there. I'm going to switch up to do the emerald Swarovski Rondelle, and then my 12 millimeter bead. Once that's all on there, I'm going to make my loop on the other side. When my loop is on the other side, I want it to be about even to this side here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab at that mark again, right where I have that I need to hold. I'm going to leave about 1/8 of an inch and just kind of turn my pliers to the side. That's going to turn that wire to the side. So with my hand, when I bring the wire over the top of my round nose pliers, I'm going to be able to have that loop be right at the top. What you can do also is trim that down just a little bit and then pull that loop in. You can straighten that loop out then by going and turning it a little bit more. And if you want to round it out too, you can always move your pliers. That's going to weaken the silver a little bit, but not bad. Once you have your snowman made, then you can go in, if you'd like, with your Sharpie and do the 3 little buttons. It's going to be one at the top, one in the middle, and then one here right at the bottom. Again, you could do an acrylic on here if you wanted to. You could do nail polish, and that's just going to put the little drops on. I'm going to make my other 4 snowmen, so I have 6 in total, and then we'll get ready to add it to our chain. So again, to start, I'm going to go in right to that marking that I made, and I'm going to make my loop by just rounding out the wire in my round nose pliers. I'm going to turn that wire back 45 degrees, and that's going to make my eye pin. I'm going to give myself about 1.5 inches. I'm going to cut my wire, and then I'm going to load my eye pin going from the top down. Loading on the cube, then my O bead, then my head, which is the 8mm, then my scarf, which is that crystal rondelle, my 12mm, and then I'm going to get in to do my loop at the bottom. It's nice if you keep your loops consistent, that when you make the loop here on the bottom, if when you look at it, the loops are facing the same direction. It's not necessary though, especially because the beads are rounded. I'm going to hold about 1/8 of an inch above, turn my beads to the side, the wire to the side, and bring the wire over the top and complete my loop. When you cut the extra wire, if you have enough here to hold on to, you're going to cut inside that loop. What that's going to do is that's going to prevent your wire from crossing over itself. So I'm going to go right in here and give a nice little trim. That bead mount will grab onto that extra wire. I'm going to pick up my needle nose pliers and just close up that link a little bit. Once I'm done, then I'll go back and I'll add all of my buttons onto my snowman. But we're going to continue doing this fashion the whole length of those 6 snowmen. So now that I have all my snowmen made here, I'm basically just going to assemble. So I'm going to go to the end of my chain, and I'm going to figure out, laying the snowmen on their side, exactly how far apart I want them to be. Because they are a little bit bigger and they're semi-heavy, I'm going to leave a good 2 inches of chain, 2 to 3 inches of chain between each snowman. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-cut the chain so that way I don't have to stop every time and cut the chain. If you want to, you can also do it a different amount, that it doesn't need to all be consistent, but I'm going to make it consistent. To figure out then exactly how long you did, you can always hold your chain on a round nose pliers or a piece of the wire, and that's going to make it easier to figure out exactly where you need to cut your next piece. And I have 6 snowmen here, so I'm going to need 7 pieces of chain in that same length. So going in here, I'm just going to cut, open that link. That link that you used, or that you cut, is pretty much wasted. You could use it a little bit as jump rings for earrings, but I wouldn't use it for anything that has much weight to it, because it'll just open back up. Once you're done cutting, you can start assembling. Again, you can see this is just my quick way to cut chain, so that way it's all the same length. And I have my 5. This will be a 6th piece that's on here. And then I'll cut my 7th piece. And then all we need to do is add our snowmen to these pieces of chain. It's kind of nice, you're pretty much finished once you get done here. I'm going to push all of these little scraps out of the way so they're not in my way and confusing me. I also like to clean off my bead mat at this point, move everything out of the way, and that way I'm just concentrating on what I'm working with. My round nose pliers I'm actually done with at this point, so I can also set those aside. And my wire cutters I'm done with. Now is when I'm going to really introduce my needle nose pliers. For this, I want to make sure that my snowmen are all facing in the same direction. I'm going to make a long chain that they're all facing the same way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my needle nose pliers and I'm going to open that loop a little bit. Anytime you have a loop that you've made, you don't want to pull back and open. We're just going to push the wire to the side a little bit. That's going to open that loop. We're going to slide in our piece of chain, and then we're going to close up that loop. When you close up the loop, you want to make sure that it's nice and tightly closed so that way your chain's not going to pop off the top there. When you get to the top piece, you're going to attach and pick up another piece of chain and attach this one as well, closing that loop. The thing to keep track of as I'm doing this is that I'm doing every other color, that I have red and green that I'm alternating, and that all my snowmen are facing the same direction so that they're all sitting from the bottom to the top. I link in, and then I close up that loop. If you do find any loops when you're working with it that aren't quite rounded or are pretty far open, you can grab your round nose pliers and kind of correct that as you're working with it. You also don't want to overthink what you're doing. It's just simple opening and closing and continuing on with my snowmen here. I've got a green one that I'm going to go into play here. Opening up, attaching bottom first, and then going to the top. Again, I'm going to do the whole way around, attaching these, alternating colors, and making sure that I'm facing all in the same direction. The body will spin around, so your buttons will spin around. If you want to, you can also attach or add little buttons on the other side. That way when you're looking at it and it is spinning, you always see at least some button. So as you get finished, you'll have the links of chain and your snowmen. You can make extras. It's also a great idea for a lanyard. If you are doing a lanyard or a teacher's gift for somebody that they have to wear a badge, you can actually face the snowmen so that they're all sitting in the same direction here, that they're sitting up and down, and then put one in the middle here at the base that you're connecting to do those snowmen as an idea. It's also a cute idea for a children's zipper pull or for a little purse fob that you can hang these little snowmen off of that, as well as doing something like a long jewelry and chain necklace. So there's a lot of different uses. You can play around with the different things you used for the snowman. The frosted glass here, that reconstituted matted crystal, really has that nice kind of shine to it, but still has that nice frosted matte look that it does look like snow. So they're fun to play with. Again, if you want to, you can draw the buttons on both sides. If you want to have some fun, you can also draw little eyes and a nose on them. That's up to you. Get a little drops of nail polish. Those nail art pens would work really well also to attach to this if you're working with it. But it's a cute little holiday necklace, again, that's not so chintzy, more of a fun length of a necklace to keep it longer, and you can wear it in with multiple different outfits or with multiple different necklaces too. You could do a short one or one hanging as a pendant and then this one longer as well. It has that layered up look to it. So just a fun little quick seasonal necklace that you can work with and that you can create and play around with the different snowmen. And if you get a chance to visit our stores, we'd be happy to give you some of the supplies and sell them to you if you need them. You can also visit PotomacBeads.com and shop with us online for these different fun materials that were used to make these snowmen. If you watch the rest of our YouTube videos, we'll also give you other ideas for uses for some of these same beads that you might have left over, since you have to get whole tubes of them. And we'll be able to show you different uses, both holiday uses as well as just everyday jewelry wares to make out of those extra pieces. So thanks a lot for watching, and Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.